Welcome to the Divorce View Talk Show. Hello, it's Joanie Winberg, divorce mentor and founder of the live group coaching call, How to Emotionally and Financially Survive Divorce. It's always my pleasure to do the show together with my co-host, Rosalind Sedacca. Hello, Roz.
Hi, Joanie. Good to see you this week. I'm Rosalind Sedacca, founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network. I'm a divorce and parenting coach and author of How Do I Tell the Kids About the Divorce? And as always, we have an interesting guest today, someone who has a great deal of expertise on divorce issues, and she's a therapist. Her name is Terry Gaspard, and she also has a new book she's going to talk to us about a little later on. Why don't you welcome our guest, Joanie?
Well, it's a thrill. It's thrilled to have Terry on the show. In fact, she's a returning guest, so we're excited about that. So, Terry, welcome back.
Thanks. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
So today's topic is breaking the cycle of divorce. And Terry, it sounds like you've been talking about this a lot. You have six steps or 6 tips that you want to share with us.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us a little bit first about what's going on with you, because you have some exciting news.
Yes, I do. I just published my first book, January 19th,
Good.
Daughters of Divorce, with Source Books. So I've been excited to go around and do discussions, presentations, and book signings to share the tools that I learned as an adult daughter of divorce with other people, both women, teenagers are coming to my presentation, which is really excellent. Therapists, a lot of therapists are coming and getting tips for their clients, parents, boyfriends, husbands, you name it. It's been a wonderful month.
So what really started you or had you start the process of the book? You went through divorce, and then is it because your daughter's been through divorce as well?
Nope. Divorce.
No, okay.
Oh, you're close. Divorce runs in my family.
Okay.
And I decided in the mid-90s to try to do something to eradicate the divorce bug. So I started doing research in graduate school. I was going for my MSW in social work. And I thought, if I'm going to study anything, I'm going to study how to break the legacy of divorce. Because my parents had been divorced and their parents on both sides. It really runs in my family.
Wow.
3 of my sisters had been divorced, 3 out of 3, so that's a pretty strong chance right there. And I found a lot of fascinating research out there, but I was particularly interested in the research and the lack of research, too, on daughters of divorce, because coming from a family with sisters and noticing they were passing the legacy on, I already had 2 children who are now grown, and I started really wanting to make sure that they could hopefully do anything they could to become less divorce prone, anything I could do to, get some tools. So I started studying a lot of the women that I worked with. I worked at a women's center at a community college where I teach, and I started interviewing hundreds and hundreds of my students, and then people would recruit people. So out of that, I got enough data for 2 studies, which were published in the Journal of Divorce and Remarriage. And then I kind of put things aside. I got, divorced myself during that period, got remarried, had another child who's now 17, and then about 6 years ago, decided to revisit the issue when I realized I wanted even more in-depth information because I wanted to help my own daughter and her friends and a lot of my students to really do something, not that you can always prevent divorce, but to really gain more tools so that they could have healthy, long-term, intimate relationships. A lot of my students, clients, I work a lot in school systems and at college counseling centers, complained that they felt that their relationships were doomed to fail. And I always felt that way. I never had a sense of optimism about relationships, and not to mention marriage. When I would have disagreements with my ex-husband, frequently we didn't resolve conflicts very well. Keep in mind, we were complete opposites. So that didn't help.
I think that's another whole show, but we've done that before, and most people are opposites for sure.
Well, through these over 320 interviews, I found that there were pathways, there were distinct issues that the women were dealing with, and I'll go through those and tell you how I turned those into steps to successful relationships. And through the meetings with them and through a lot of groups that I was running, I was really able to refine the tools. Of course, I looked to the experts. I looked at people like Dr. John Gottman. I looked at other people like, Harriet Lerner, and I said, I think that what we have here, I told Tracy, my daughter, we have a book. We have a book, but it's not going to be a theories book. It's not going to be like my other articles where I talked about,
Well, I would say, why don't we get started and talk about these tips, because I think it's going to be really helpful. So we're talking about breaking the cycle of divorce, and the first one you talk about is gaining awareness about your past hurt. So touch upon that for us.
Well, first of all, many daughters of divorce are like I was. We have a sleeper effect, a delayed reaction to it. Because I was a good student and I was pretty compliant. I really didn't do any acting out when I was a teenager, a little bit here and there. But I thought I was pretty much okay, and none of the counselors that I saw in later in high school or college really identified that my parents was that their divorce was an issue for me. So what I needed to do, believe it or not, as an adult, was to go back and revisit my parents' divorce. I actually had many conversations with my mother and was able to heal some wounds with her. And even though my father had passed away, I was able to talk to my sisters, relatives.
Give us an example. What did you feel as though you did talk to your mom about that might be something another person might think, oh, wow, what do I need to do? Or what can I say?
In my case, I felt that my mom said a lot of negative things about my dad. And she was a daughter of divorce herself, and she badmouthed him a lot. And I don't think she ever realized the impact it had on me. So it gave me a strong craving for male attention, and yet a very kind of ambivalent relationship with my dad. I definitely was eager to have a close relationship with him, but I thought when he didn't visit or he didn't pay child support, I took it very personally, and I thought he didn't love me at times. So I did develop some trust and abandonment issues as a result of that. So I was able to sit over a cup of coffee. My mom and I always loved to drink coffee together and talk through some of these issues. She was so excited about me writing the book because being a daughter of divorce herself, she had been married and divorced twice and pretty much gave up on love when she was in her 50s. And she was excited that I was remarried and I was trying, to take a chance on love, and that I wanted to share all these strategies with other women. So I did that, and with my dad, I was able to write a letter to him, and I really regained a lot of intense positive feelings towards him. I met with my sisters in California. I had this whirlwind trip out there where I interviewed them about 4 years ago and saw their perspectives and gained a lot of insight. And I saw that we all really had a different take on things somewhat, but yet we all agreed that our relationships had been impacted by a lot of the conflict between our parents. A lot of it in my family had to do with my stepmother and my mother. They had a lot of rivalries with one another, and it caused a lot of tension. Then there was a stepbrother that came into the scene. But we were able to, really revisit it. And I realized I had to work on the next step, which is really forgiveness. And that's an ongoing struggle for a lot of us that have dealt with dysfunction of many types. In the Publisher's Weekly review of our book, they said it was a phenomenal book to help people with a lot of trauma-related issues. And for many of us, like in my case, I didn't realize that my parents' divorce at the time was very, very defining for me. In fact, I say in my book that their divorce was the most defining experience of my life because I was split between two homes, and I was having to deal with all these conflicts between my stepmother and my mother, my feelings that my dad didn't visit enough, and I carried that with me, and it did create trust issues and low self-esteem. So those are some other pathways that we can talk about.
So forgiveness, you're saying, was a major that helped you heal, and it sounds like everyone in the family to heal more.
Definitely, we all learned to forgive each other. We actually, my sisters and I, because we didn't spend that much time together in the same home. We were always back and forth. We only had 1 year in our teenage life that we lived in the same home. We had very different perceptions, and we had a lot of misconceptions about what really happened. And we were able to share that and do a lot of healing and learn to forgive each other and our parents, because I truly believe that they got caught up in the divorce culture. Keep in mind, I'm from Los Angeles, California, where divorces were prevalent anyway, and then in the late 60s, it really went off the charts, and a lot of people, as you know, were the first or second generation of divorce, and that really explains a lot. And we just pretty much thought divorce was expected. And yet, in my case, I think I developed low self-esteem, and as I said, these issues that relationships are meant to fail, they're not going to work out, I might as well not really make a commitment, or if I make a commitment, make it to someone where it's not really going to work out anyway. It's kind of a weird mix with the commitment issue.
That's a tough mindset.
Sabotaging. Yes. Yeah. You know, you either plunge in too quickly like I did and then retreat, and you don't feel vulnerable and happy, and you don't want to share yourself with the other person, or you totally block people out and you don't get close to other people, or in some cases, a lot of the women I've interviewed stay in relationships that are dysfunctional much too long.
Right.
So really picking a partner who's a good match for you, I talk a lot about in the book too. You know, good chemistry and good compatibility.
You talk about your number 3 here is about building trust in a relationship, and I think you just touched upon a little bit of trust, but that's hard if you haven't had the role model of trust to begin with.
But you have to gain that awareness. Yeah. It's taken me years really to come out and admit I have trust issues, because that's an important step. So where that plays out in a relationship, and my husband will tell you, is that I can be very mistrustful and I can assume the worst of him. So if he's on his cell phone, I automatically go to the place, who's he talking to? Why is he on the phone too long? And I get suspicious, believe it or not, at times. He has to reassure me. If he's late coming home, I will automatically sometimes think negatively. He's learned through the years not to trigger my trust and abandonment issues by being very reassuring and saying things like, I'm there for you, I love you, no problem. And I also have to work on my own irrational thinking at times and think about how much of this trust problem I'm having, this mistrust, is my own past, my baggage, and how much of it is his behavior. Certainly, if you're with a partner that is not trustworthy, you know, they've given you signs that they're not worthy of trust, that's not your problem. But in my case, even though I am in a committed, positive relationship, I still have some trust issues that I work on. But I work on them, and I get support for them, and I do a lot of journaling, and I find reading and writing very therapeutic, talking to other people about them. So I love to create forums on issues such as trust.
Plus, to me, it sounds like you're being more conscious of those thoughts. And then as soon as they happen, you're aware that, okay, here comes my lack of trust. And so that, to me, is half the battle right there.
Definitely. Stop it dead in its tracks, as I say in the book. Don't let yourself get carried away. There's a couple that we interviewed for the book. I'll call them Jenna and Trevor, those aren't their real names, who she had such significant trust issues because her father betrayed her mother and was unfaithful, and she had many dysfunctional relationships herself where she couldn't trust her partners, that she would scan her boyfriend's text messages, his emails on his computer. She would flee the house, you know, that fight or flight syndrome. She would just leave and not talk to him. She would do what I used to do, just clam up and not even give him a chance. We say in the book, give your partner a chance to tell their side of the story. So through our communications, and we sent emails back to each other for years, she learned to extend trust to Trevor because he was trustworthy. I can say they became engaged, and now they have 2 young children. And she still works on trust issues, but she's gotten so much more evolved in her approach. And she picked a partner who's a good match for her because he's a steady guy, he's reliable, there's a lot of consistency between his words and actions. So picking a partner who's a good match for you is really important too.
And we should mention that being on the other side of trust is really tough. Being in a relationship with someone who isn't trusting is challenging for anyone in a relationship. So definitely. The other side of the coin is equally difficult.
Yes, in the book we go through a lot of ways that you can discern whether your partner is trustworthy. We have what we call action steps in every chapter, and they're very much tool-related to give you more self-awareness and some strategies that you can use. So the chapter's theme-related. We also have a chapter I didn't mention called How to Restore or Heal the Broken or Missing Relationship with Your Father. I told my own story, and I found with all these women, over 320, most of them had issues with their fathers. Some of them had been able to heal through therapy. Therapy is very beneficial. But some of them would say things like, I think he cares more about his stepsons than he does me. I'm worried I'm going to be ostracized or estranged because of my stepmother. Maybe I won't, be able to collect anything from his will when I die. He only calls me sporadically. On my website, movingpastdivorce.com, out of the views that I get, about 40% of them have to do with the father-daughter blog. And most of the bloggers that blog me are dads or daughters asking how to heal that relationship. So it's a very common theme.
I know. I actually had a client who's similar to what you were saying, that your mom talked a lot of negativity or had a lot of negativity about your dad. And if you hear that, this woman heard this for years and years and years, and then unfortunately her mom had passed.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the negativity just stopped, and she just saw and I don't think the dad even realized it because he missed the mom, but he was just so happy and loving and open, and the daughter was like, wow, this is a dad I never knew existed. And so it was so healing for her because he was just human, and that's what she wanted all her life.
Right. There's a chance for reconciliation. One of the women I interviewed that I have as a lead story in the father-daughter chapter, her dad ended up leaving her and her mother on Christmas Day, but what she found out later was her mother was an alcoholic, and his dad had tried to get her into treatment, and he did remarry and have other children, but he always wanted to visit his daughter, but the mom prevented that. So through talking to me and filling out the survey that I gave her, she was able to reconnect with her father and hear his side of the story, and realize that he actually wanted to stay in touch with her, but he didn't want to make her life more difficult, and he didn't really realize the extent of the mother's alcoholism. He thought she had stopped. There were times that she was in recovery. So sometimes we really need to correct faulty assumptions and information that we get.
And to me, it showed how the influence of all those years really can affect a person. And then you start believing what you hear. So if one of the parents is quiet or might not say anything and the other one is constantly badgering the other one, you start believing it. And that's what happened to this lady until her mom passed, and then she didn't have that negativity, and it was amazing that she got to know her dad the way she did. It's sad in a way that had to happen that way. But
right. I mean, in some cases there isn't an opportunity for healing. I do have a lead story in my book. I call her Catherine. That's not her real name. And she has made a decision for now not to really work on the relationship with her father because she has found that his substance abuse and infidelity and other issues through the years have just been so strong and so hurtful that she just is not ready to approach him at this point. And he has not made an effort to approach her. I thought very long and hard about whether I was going to include her letter in the book because it was very moving, but I was worried about confidentiality, so I didn't. But I still have her letter, and it is amazing the letters that the women wrote and the emotions that they experienced and expressed towards their father. Some women, on the other hand, do have broken relationships with their mother. I had a little bit of both with my parents, and I needed to heal both of them.
Why don't we take a second, have you hold up your book so we can see your new book, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Of course.
So, Terry, I want you to talk so you'll be on the screen. So go ahead. Tell us about your book.
Okay, well.
Hold it up and talk so that at the same time.
Okay. Well, the book gives women the tools to have better relationships. And like I said, I start with my own story so they can relate to my story and the fact that I am a daughter of divorce. But the portraits of the over 300 women really carry you through the book and make it quite interesting in every chapter, which is organized according to the steps, starting with, obviously going back and gaining more self-awareness, to the last chapter, which in a nutshell is make a commitment. We offer very, very useful tools so that women don't put the book down and say, so how do I deal with these issues?
Yeah,
because what I found as a daughter of divorce myself is, okay, even though I knew I had some issues with trust and self-esteem, I didn't really know quite how to work on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought there was something wrong with me, and I was always going to be that way. So the stories in the book are very optimistic. Every chapter ends with a positive portrait of a woman who has worked through the issues and how she did that. So, and these are real women with their names and their identity disguised, of course. So you really get a sense when you're reading the book that I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that's going through this. And there is enough evidence now in my own research that I did in the mid-1990s, and some other researchers have found, that women are more likely as girls, when they grow up, to have wounded trust than boys in divorced family. A lot of it's the father-daughter relationship that changes drastically, and a lot of it is moms have a tendency sometimes to not understand the importance of, you know, being very supportive and having a healthy co-parenting relationship, or at least parallel parenting where they, you know, don't have a lot of conflict. So those high conflict divorces, which was the case in my family and so many families, really they are a problem more so for girls than boys, because as girls we define ourselves through relationships. We tend to be more closer to our moms and our sisters and our aunts and our grandmothers, and we identify with them. So I know I always identified with my mom, and I thought, well, like her, I would just follow in her footsteps. And our brains are also a little bit different. Our memories are such that we tend to hold on to negative memories and positive memories longer than men do. So physiologically, we're wired differently and we're socialized differently. So those two factors alone justify the fact that we have a unique take on divorce. So that's why my book is actually considered unique nonfiction.
I love it. I love it. I was going to say, can we pull one of the, okay, so I was going to say, okay, a little echo there. So can you pull one of your, I think you said one of your how-tos was to write, or a way to repair the damage is to write a narrative. Is that an exercise? That's a good one.
Yes,
okay.
Definitely.
The book down now so you could talk more.
Okay. Okay. So what that would be either a letter expressing your unresolved feelings to one of your parents. In many cases, it is your dad, and you know your own feelings about it, being vulnerable, and you know asking for what you would like to improve the relationship. It could be something simple like I'd like to have coffee once a month, or I'd like to keep in touch on the phone. But being really clear, not in a demanding way, about what your needs are, and that could also be true for some of your current partners. So developing a vision of the kind of relationship you want can be done also with a vision board. I'm very big on vision boards.
Yes, me too.
I have one myself.
Right
They're great. So that helps you with pictures, with words, with images of things that you want to have a healthier life. In my case, I know writing is very therapeutic for me. I've always been a writer, but at times I found it hard to take time to write in my journal or do any writing because I'm always too focused on what other people need and what they want. So that's something for me that's very important. Another person might find gardening or community outreach, you know, volunteering or whatever it is, you know, going to the gym. We all have things that we need to work on to feel good about ourselves. So developing that kind of a narrative for yourself does improve your self-esteem. And I also recommend writing 3 successes every day and putting
absolutely the good stuff. And I know, and maybe you've done this, both of you, is that this has worked a lot for me as well as something I learned years ago from my coaches, that you write down all the thoughts that are not serving you. And when you really take the time and think about it and become so conscious of them, it's amazing how many you start writing down, and it can go as far back as you want. And then the beauty of it is that after you're done, you can shred it, burn it. I love tearing it up because you're physically in there ripping it up into tiny, tiny pieces, and then you just chuck it, and it's like you're just letting it go and you're releasing it. And that is such a visual off your shoulders, the burden of it. And it's amazing how that works, because days later, that stuff that was bothering you is gone.
That's true. If you just get it out there. And so that's where either therapy, journaling, sharing, I think coaching is really wonderful for women, ways to, you know, put your feelings out there and to validate them and to understand
Let them go.
that, right, you're not crazy. These are real feelings.
Yeah.
You're entitled to them. And then let them go and realize forgiving yourself and other people is not about accepting or condoning.
That's right.
It's about making peace with yourself and
And
realizing holding on to it just hurts you. Move on, exactly.
I love that. Just move on. Let it go. So let's have people know where to connect with you for your book and your website too, Terry.
Well, if you log on to movingpastdivorce.com, you'll see on the home page a picture of the book. And you click onto the link right on there, and it takes you to a page that allows you to buy the book through many different sources. Amazon, obviously, Barnes & Noble, a lot of the independent stores are on there. So you can do that. And you can also go to your local bookstore. I had my book launch at Barnes & Noble locally, and most of the Barnes & Noble have already ordered the book, and they're selling it. You can request it at a bookstore or also a college. Colleges are starting to catch on. I'm doing some presentations at local colleges because young adult women are really who I want to get the message to. Not that I'm not interested in therapists and moms and everyone else, but the reason why this book is so passionate for me is because I wish I had developed these tools when I was a young woman.
For new relationships and for your future. Right. So once again, it's movingpastdivorce.com is your website.
Yes.
Okay. Terry, before we have to go, what would be another tip that you'd like to share with our audience from your book?
I would like to recommend that people, when they do find a partner that they feel might be a good match for them, that they take it slow. They don't plunge in like many daughters of divorce do, and really evaluate whether this person is compatible with you. You might have good chemistry, which might be physical and intellectual, but do you have similar values and beliefs? Do you want the same things? And don't be afraid to speak up about what your deal breakers are, what those things are that are important to you. And then take, a couple of years to get to know that person, and don't make a long-term lasting commitment like marriage too quickly, too easily. Because I think the more you know a person and you spend time with them, either living together or dating, certainly helps you to see if this is a relationship that is going to be a lasting, loving, committed relationship for you.
And one of those rules is that the first 3 months, it's pretty much known out there that the person has sent in their representative.
Exactly.
So after your 3 months, the representative leaves, and now you're starting to see the true colors. And I've always said to my clients, test the waters, put something out there,
exactly,
and see his reaction or her reaction. And I dated a guy that I didn't realize he didn't like the holidays.
And you love them, I know. We were on a holiday.
And I thought, how did I miss this? So put it out there, and because I wouldn't have been that long with that person if I'd known that. So you gotta be good.
Some of us are afraid to be alone, and I think as a woman, our culture is so much stigmatized about women being alone that we feel like there's something wrong with us if we don't have a partner. Whereas we focus so much now more on our careers and other people. We need to focus more on visualizing what we want out of a relationship. And like you said, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and, in a nice, loving way, really try to figure out by, talking through things, whether or not that person is going to be there for you in the way that you need, not only physically but emotionally. Like I said, someone who doesn't trigger your issues and make things worse and can reassure you and be there for you, even on the bad days.
Yeah. Terry, we've got to have you back again soon because there's so much good stuff here. We could really dive in even deeper. But once again, it's movingpastdivorce.com, and I'm just thrilled you came back and thrilled to talk about your book.
Just mentioning Terry Gaspard is her name.
And moving past divorce. Thanks, Terry. Thanks so much. And Roz, catch us up on what's going on with you too.
Yes, well, January continues to be International Child-Centered Divorce Month, and if you go to divorcedparentsupport.com/ebook, you'll get access to a wealth of free, no-cost resources, services, and excellent material to help you on any facet of before, during, or long after divorce. And of course, at the Child-Centered Divorce Network, childcentereddivorce.com, we always have that kind of information, lots of new interviews and resources available to help you if you are divorcing as a parent, because the children are so important. And Joanie, what's been happening with you?
Well, I tell you, I just love doing this to divorceview.com. Go there, check out all our shows. Roz and I have done over 100 shows together, so there's a lot of good information there. And Terry, I always feel there's such a great connection because I've always been interested in the how. And so for me, it's learning about yourself, and that's the starting place. You got to know about yourself. So our live group coaching call really focuses on the different personalities and getting to know who you are and why you are attracted to that opposite person. So good stuff, Terry. Once again, Roz, always a pleasure. Thanks for tuning in, and join us again next time when we have some more information to help you through divorce or even after. Thanks again for tuning in.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.